My name is Sophie Perez, I'm 30, and I've always believed logic could protect me from the chaos of emotion. I'm a software engineer. My life runs on routines, code that compiles, coffee black because cream is an indulgence I rarely remember to buy, and schedules that make the world feel safe, even when my family doesn't. From the outside, I probably look like someone who has it all together. But the truth is, my family has always leaned on me as their invisible backbone. The bills I cover, the favors I handle, the emergencies I fix, none of it shows up in photos or Facebook updates. My parents, always charming when it suited them, never hesitated to call me at midnight for help. My sister Anna, sweet in the way that only siblings can be, somehow always expects me to wire money for rent or a new phone. And my cousin Mark, running a construction company that's constantly on the verge of collapse, somehow expects me to review contracts and legal disputes for free. I work 70-hour weeks negotiating software contracts, drafting proposals, and keeping my clients from ever seeing the inside of a courtroom. I have no husband, no children, no vacation days. My life is a ledger of work and responsibility, and every time I think I can catch my breath, my family fills the space I leave with their needs. I thought I was doing it all out of love. I really did. When my mother's retirement approached, I wanted her to feel pride, not stress. I paid off the house, cleared all the debts, and even surprised them with a luxury car, something my father had always dreamed of but never afforded. I imagined her smiling at me, recognition finally shining through after years of thankless labor. The night of her retirement party, I stood outside the high-end restaurant for a moment, catching my breath and taking a call from a client. I returned to the hall, expecting congratulations. Instead, I overheard something that froze me mid-step. Sophie actually thinks that just because she pays for everything, it makes her important. My mother's voice, cool, dismissive, sharp, drifted down the hallway, accompanied by laughter. My Aunt Linda chimed in, "Of course she does. We raise someone who thinks their money makes them valuable." My chest tightened. All the hours, the sacrifices, the constant stress of being the family's personal ATM, it had all meant nothing. I wasn't a daughter, a sister, a niece. I was a fool in their eyes, someone to exploit for my skills, my money, and my patience. Something inside me snapped. The moment stretched as I realized that my life had been a series of transactions, my value measured only in what I could provide, no more. I returned to the party, heart hammering, and sat at the table. Pulling out my phone, I opened my banking app. Anna looked at me, frowning. "What are you doing?" I canceled every automatic payment tied to their accounts. Mortgage, utilities, car payments, insurance, all gone, I said, slipping the phone into my pocket. "You mean all done?" my dad asked, disbelief in his voice. "Yes, you're on your own now." Her smile vanished instantly. My mother's voice snapped, sharp and incredulous. "Sophie, stop being dramatic." I laughed, short, bitter. "No, this is long over. You think I'm naive for paying your bills? Fine. Let's see how you like paying them yourselves." The room went silent. For the first time, the weight lifted, not because I had power over them, but because I finally had power over myself. The first reactions were predictable: disbelief, outrage, and casual dismissal. My father shook his head. Anna scoffed, and my mother attempted to guilt me, but I didn't waver. The anger and humiliation I had carried for years crystallized into clarity. I was done being invisible, done being used. The guests laughed around us, completely oblivious to the storm that had just been unleashed. I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. This was freedom, and it was terrifying. And yet, even in that moment of triumph, a flicker of doubt lingered. Could they escalate? Could my family's manipulation go further? I pushed the thought aside. The night had ended for them, but it had just begun for me. The morning after my mother's retirement party, silence replaced the chaos. No calls, no messages. I expected relief, but it didn't come. Instead, there was a weight in the air, as though the world was holding its breath, waiting to see my next move. I spent the day staring at my laptop, pretending to focus on work while listening to the buzzing phone on my desk. 37 missed calls. By the end of the week, that number would climb to over 100. I didn't answer a single one. The first attempt at manipulation was subtle, my mother's voice on voicemail, trembling. "Sophie, we need the electricity paid today, dear. Can you help?" Ignored. My father's graver, almost pleading. Sophie, the insurance premiums are overdue. This is serious. Ignored. Anna's tone was sharp, almost accusatory. Wow, so you're really going to abandon us over one comment? Grow up. Ignored. Each ignored call was a reminder of years I had given without question. I had paid mortgages, car loans, medical bills, tuition for cousins, legal fees for family businesses, always without expecting gratitude. And now that I had finally taken a stand, I was being villainized. A week later, my mother tried a new tactic: guilt through third parties. Kelly, my cousin's wife, called me one afternoon. Her voice was hesitant. Sophie, your mom says you've abandoned them. They're struggling. The house. I stopped her mid-sentence, a cold realization settling in. They weren't desperate. They were performing desperation, trying to lure me back. Even my father attempted a softer approach. Sophie, let's make a deal. Big things only. The house, car, insurance. That's fair, right? I smiled briefly, letting hope flicker in their eyes. Then I said calmly, I'll pay again, if you sign a contract stating you'll pay me back every cent with interest. Relief drained from their faces instantly. My mother sputtered. Anna gasped. You expect us to pay you back? Yes. You never asked before. You never appreciated it before. Now we make this official. Silence. I realized then that for years, I had been invisible, not because they didn't notice me, but because they didn't need to respect me. Their comfort had always depended on my compliance. By the end of that week, their calls became frantic, escalating from anger to desperation. But I didn't falter. For the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of being labeled selfish. At night, I lay in bed and replayed the retirement party over and over. The laughter, the dismissive voices, the casual cruelty. I allowed myself one moment of rage, then pushed it aside. Freedom, I realized, came not from what I had done for them, but from what I refused to do next. Foreshadowing lingered like a shadow. Something told me the family wouldn't stop at guilt or pleas. Their sense of entitlement was too deep, their desperation too predictable, and I knew, in my gut, the next wave would be more than words. The silence didn't last long. By the second week, my family's tactics had evolved from guilt to manipulation, and from manipulation to outright performance. Missed calls multiplied, texts became urgent and emotional, and my social media feeds were subtly weaponized. Anna posted cryptic messages. Some people only help others to hold it over their heads. Real love is unconditional. I laughed bitterly. Unconditional? I had paid their bills for years without question, never asking for anything in return. And now, in the blink of an eye, I was the villain. My mother escalated too, sending desperate texts about unpaid utilities, expired insurance, and the looming threat of financial ruin. Each message was carefully calculated to make me feel responsible, but I refused to take the bait. Years of conditioning had taught me how they operated, and now I understood. This was all a performance. Then came the emotional manipulation through others. Kelly, my cousin's wife, called again, hesitantly. Sophie, your parents are struggling. The house, the bills. I thought you should know. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Kelly, did they tell you I covered everything for years? Mortgage, debts, car, insurance? No? Then I suggest you tell them not to involve me in their performance art. I'm done. Even my father tried a new approach. Sophie, can we compromise? Big expenses only, the essentials. I could almost see the relief in his eyes, as if he believed I would cave. Sure, I said, smiling briefly. I'll cover it again, if you sign a contract promising repayment with interest. The relief vanished. My mother's voice tightened. Anna's gasp filled the line. You're serious? Absolutely. You never asked before. You never appreciated it before. Now we make this official. The first signs of desperation became theatrical. Their attempts to guilt me escalated into staged emergencies. One voicemail from my mother, voice trembling. Sophie, the electricity was shut off today. How could you do this? I almost felt a twinge of doubt. Almost. But then I remembered every year I had spent bailing them out while they mocked me behind my back. My resolve hardened. I wasn't just protecting my bank account anymore. I was protecting my self-respect. The family's performances reached a new level when Anna tried to rope in distant relatives and neighbors. Uncle Ray, a relative I barely spoke to, called to plead. Sophie, your mother says you abandoned them. They're losing the house. I let out a slow, bitter laugh. Did she tell you I paid for everything for years? Mortgage, debts, car, insurance? No. Then you've been misled. They're not desperate, they're dramatic. By now, their attempts were no longer personal. They were public. Social media, third-party interventions, guilt trips, all part of a carefully orchestrated campaign to make me yield. And yet, each attempt only strengthened my resolve. For the first time, I felt the intoxicating mix of freedom and control. I was finally the author of my own life, and nothing, not their tears, threats, or manipulations, would force me to hand over my agency again. And still, deep down, I knew the worst was yet to come. Their desperation, I sensed, would soon morph into something darker, something that required more than just words or guilt. Weeks passed. I thought I had seen the peak of my family's desperation. I was wrong. One afternoon, an email arrived from an unknown sender with the subject line, "Are you sure you want to do this to your own mother?" Curiosity overrode caution. I opened it. It was a GoFundMe page. The title, "Desperate Mother on the Verge of Homelessness After Heartless Daughter Betrays Family." My stomach dropped. Images of our family, smiling at birthdays, holidays, my face beaming as the good daughter, were now being used as weapons for pity money. The description was blatant manipulation. After years of sacrifice, our dear mother has been abandoned by her daughter, left with nothing. She now faces losing her home. And worst of all, it was working. The page had already raised $12,450 out of a $50,000 goal. I clenched my fists. They had crossed a line. They weren't just manipulating me. They were scamming strangers, profiting off lies. I didn't panic. Instead, I called my cybersecurity friend. Within hours, the IP address linked directly to Anna's laptop. Gotcha. Next, I called my lawyer. "Greg, do you handle defamation cases?" "Always," he replied. I sent him everything. Screenshots, IP records, transaction histories. "The target," I said calmly, "is my own family." Greg whistled. "Sophie, this is low, even for family." "Yes," I said, "but they started it. I'm finishing it. No mercy." Within 48 hours, the GoFundMe was shut down, all funds frozen. Anna called, screaming, "You had no right." "I had every right," I said calmly. "It's called fraud." The legal and financial consequences hit them hard. The house was foreclosed, the luxury car repossessed. Anna's business collapsed under the weight of debt. My parents, for the first time, felt the tangible consequences of years of dependency. I watched from a distance, emotions swirling. Satisfaction, relief, and a strange emptiness. Years of sacrifice, betrayal, and manipulation had finally been repaid, not with money, but with justice and closure. Even as chaos unfolded around them, I felt a clarity I had never known. I was free, free from guilt, free from obligation, free from the performative love of a family who had never truly appreciated me. But even in this victory, a shadow lingered. This was not the end. My family might recover, financially, perhaps, but the psychological scars, the betrayal, the lessons learned, I would carry those forever. And I knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning of my life on my own terms. Weeks of silence passed. For the first time, I thought my family had given up. No calls, no texts, no social media drama. I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. Freedom was intoxicating, but it came with a weight I hadn't expected, a hollow awareness that the people I once loved had never truly valued me. Then my phone buzzed with an unknown number. Hesitation flared, but I answered. "Hello?" A shaky voice came through. "Sophie, it's Kelly." Kelly, my cousin's wife. Usually quiet, observant, never one to join in the family chaos. "Your parents, they're in a bad way," she said. "Your mother, she's sick. She's lost a lot of weight, barely leaves her room. Anna, she's unraveling, drinking too much, snapping at everyone. She said, she wishes you had never been born." I leaned against the counter, rubbing my temple. Not surprising, not shocking. Years of exploitation had left deep wounds, and now the family's collapse was visible, raw, and undeniable. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked, steady. Kelly hesitated, then admitted softly, "Your mother asked me to call. She didn't want to beg herself. She'd rather die than ask you for help." but I think she hopes you'll come back." I let the silence stretch. I could feel the pull of old guilt, the residual care for the people who had shaped me, but never nurtured me. I knew in that instant what I had to do. "Sophie," Kelly whispered. I cut her off gently, firmly. "They made their choice. I will help her only for her health. Nothing else. Nothing emotional, nothing financial." There was a pause, then Kelly sighed. "I figured you'd say that. She won't drag you down anymore." Later, I unblocked my mother's number and sent a single final message. "I know you're sick. Go to a hospital. You can still fix this for yourself. But don't expect anything from me ever again. This is the last time I acknowledge you." She read it immediately, no reply. And just like that, it was over. Months passed. I never heard from them again. I don't know if my mother went to the doctor, if my father sobered up, or if Anna ever recovered from her downward spiral. And I don't care. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from the obligations that had drained me, free from the manipulation and cruelty, free to live my life on my own terms. Freedom isn't loud. It isn't a grand victory. It's quiet, subtle, but it is real. And after years of giving everything to people who would never truly value me, I finally had it. The cost had been high, the scars were deep, but the reward, my peace, my autonomy, my life, was worth every confrontation, every moment of doubt, every pang of guilt. I was no longer the fool. I was Sophie Perez, independent, strong, and free.